I'd like to call to order the February 19, 2013 meeting of the Buncombe County Commission. And if always, we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'll join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You join me in prayer. God, we pause in the middle of another busy day to join others who, like us, yearn for peace, yearn for the day that all boys and girls and men and women can grow up in a nurturing community, get a good education, find work, make a decent living, and retire in comfort and plenty, and give back to our community. We thank you for this chance to serve others and move toward these goals. We pause to remember the wonderful leaders of our county, our state, and our country who have set up all the progress in schools, education, healthcare, workforce for all of us. We thank for the opportunity to build on their vision and sense of caring for those who don't have as much as we do. We also pause to recognize the men and women who serve all of us in the military service. They put their lives on line for our freedom and justice every day. Throughout our history, military troops and their bravery have given us peace of mind, calm and steady, consistent conditions to study, work, retire, and make decisions on reason instead of brute strength. We thank you for all the past, present, and future soldiers who keep us safe and secure in Buncombe County. Help us to never forget their sacrifice and loss. Also, we pause to enjoy the seasons, the beautiful mountains, and the wonderful people who live in this stunning place called Buncombe County. Help us to appreciate what a special community of beauty and strong sense of place we all feel for our county and our community. May our decisions and actions add to the joys of living in Buncombe County. Amen.
Amen.
Our first order of business will be to read our ethics. In accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by this Commission, it's the duty of every Commissioner to avoid both conflicts of interest and appearance of conflicts. Does any board member know of any known conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to any matter coming before the Commission tonight?
No.
If not, we will proceed. Our first order of business will be to hear from the public. We'll have 3 minutes for each public comment. If your time expires, you can leave your question along with your name, address, phone number, and email with the county manager. Board members are not expected to comment on matters during public comment. Comments should be limited to subjects that are within the jurisdiction of this Commission and pertain to matters upon which we may act. Any individual speaking during public comment shall address the entire board. Any polling of board members is inappropriate. Persons addressing the Commission are expected to observe and respect the decorum of the chamber and to be respectful of everyone else in the room. Any person who willfully interrupts, disturbs, or disrupts the session will be asked to leave the meeting, and the Commission deserves the right to deny public address on any subject previously presented to the Commission. We'll start off, Mr. Rodenstein, we'll have you first. If you'd give your name and where you live.
Talk into the mic.
Yeah, make sure you talk into the mic.
Okay.
And if every commissioner can make sure your mic's on. There was questions about that last time. Go ahead, Mark.
Good afternoon. I'm Mark Rosenstein. I'm the project manager for the Green Opportunities Go Kitchen Ready program. You all funded our initial year last year this time, and I'm coming before you to request a consideration when it comes to budget time for a second year of support. The Go Kitchen Ready program launched in April of 2012. We trained 30 individuals as a pathways to self-sufficiency, dealing mainly with people in poverty and those individuals that needed a second chance. Out of those 30 individuals, we graduated 18, and we have 61% in jobs now. Your support last year was $50,000, which got the program going. We also have continuing 4-year support, $20,000 a year from 3 Asheville restaurants, so another $80,000 coming from those restaurants. We've gotten an outside agency grant from the city of Asheville. Asheville City Schools is supporting us through the use of their kitchen facility at William Randolph School on Montfort Avenue. We started our 3rd session 2 weeks ago. We have 14 students in that class now. This year we've added a number of layers to the training. In addition to the basic culinary training, we've added leadership training and Serve Safe certification and OSHA training. And my request specifically for the Buncombe County Commissioners to consider is an additional support this year so we can hire a full-time life skills trainer in leadership development. We didn't have that last year. We did it in our own program ourselves. Myself and my partner instructor did that. But we know it's very important that we need to have this additional training for these individuals to succeed once they graduate from our program, as well as to have continual support. So we have about 18 people out there now that we're developing. So I thank you for that, and I just wanted to introduce one of the individuals I've worked with, which is Mr. Kikaman Shah, and he's a graduate out of our initial program. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mark. Mr. Kushaw, is that right?
Yes, sir. I took the program, and it helped me out a lot. It helped me out of a situation that I was in and taught me a whole lot of morals and ethics that I didn't have. And I work in a French restaurant now, and it all stems from that program. And, you know, I'm doing a lot better than what I used to do. It keeps me out of trouble, and it gives me something every day to get up, to go to work, and strive to do better. So, you know, it's a whole lot of people in the situation that I was in that need help. So if y'all could find it in y'all heart to fund the program, we thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am, behind.
I'm Janet Burho Jones from District 2, encouraging you all to vote against funding for the STEM high school at this time. The Board of Education proposes building this high school on a hazardous waste site without proper, intelligent, or careful planning. I think it sets the county up for lawsuits, and I would like to postpone this. I encourage you to postpone this decision until certain studies on the air, water, and ground are completed by professional organizations. There's no rush for it right now. It's not in a central location. It's 45 minutes from my house, way down a dark, windy road. So the location is not good anyway, and putting it on a hazardous waste site is really not a good idea unless we get the all clear signals from the organizations that are examining it. I encourage you to encourage the school board to wait for these reports while exploring other locations. Take the politics out of it and be responsible representatives of your county voters. On another totally, completely different note, I would like to know how much it cost the county for Obama to come here for lunch a week or two ago, as far as all the county government personnel, how much it costs us for Obama to come here and basically eat lunch at a barbecue place, and also invite him next time and encourage you to invite him next time to eat at a different barbecue place. There's Okie Dokies in Swannanoa is fabulous, and I think if he's going to encourage and promote one particular barbecue place, it hurts the other ones. So please, everybody come to Swannanoa to eat at Okie Dokies. The end.
All right, thank you, Ms. Jones. We'll have the county manager try to get some information on the cost of the Obama visit. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Davine Dial. I'm here about the possible funding of the STEM school and ask you to delay it. In January of 2011, Mountain Express did an expose article on contaminated sites around the community. And in that article, Chairman Gant is quoted as saying, "The sheer number of hazardous sites in the community indicates the need for due diligence." He goes on to say that he passes the CTS plant every day on his way to work, but when it comes to cleanup, he points out the county's role is limited. It's a state or federal issue. We know that there are other sites, but remedial action is out of our jurisdiction. So you're saying nothing can be done by the county with the CTS situation, but you can delay this decision. Due diligence requires that you know what's going on underground, what's going on with the volatile organic compounds. We do know, doing due diligence, that there is contamination at that site from Square D and through Gorham Silver and Champion Finishing. If you Google any of those names, you'll find that there are contaminated sites around the country. We have no reason to believe that they didn't dump here as well as they have around the country. Contaminated water tends to flow towards the river, and the Buncombe County School Administration building, which is the proposed site, is directly over the path that would be headed from uphill to the river. We do not know and have not done due diligence on where the plume is underground or the rate of migration from the contamination site. Levels of VOC, we don't know what that is. We have not done our due diligence. I recommend, or I'm asking, that you delay decision on this until you know the facts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dahl. Any other public comment? Yes, ma'am.
I love the word due diligence, and I just heard it several times. I looked on your website.
You could get name and where you live, ma'am.
I'm sorry,
That's
Linda
okay.
Humphreys
Thank you,
from
Ms. Humphreys.
Barnardsville, Buncombe County. And looking on the website, I saw an agenda, a request for $5.5 million to be spent on a STEMS proposal, Buncombe County School System. I went to the general statutes, which spoke several times of due diligence. I compared what the general statutes speak to in terms of documentation, the educational resources pursued, alternative methods of delivery. I went back to the request that you folks have on your agenda as submitted by Superintendent Dr. Tony Baldwin. And the particular area that speaks to alternative methods of delivery in terms of were they pursued, it was blank. No answer to that question of due diligence, of what our general statutes require in terms of spending this money. Again, $5.5 million. My question to you and my question to those who request this kind of funding: you accept these requests without due diligence? I look forward to seeing if you are going to rubber stamp. I'm not going to go into the issues that have thus been discussed by these two lovely ladies. We know the issues. We know we support education, but do we support due diligence? I hope you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Humphreys. Yes, sir.
I'm Scott Hollowell from Arden, and I'm just going to reiterate what another speaker said. With this, it's about the STEM. how's this? This is about the STEM school siting, but not about the STEM school program. And the sheer number of hazardous waste sites in the community indicates the need for due diligence. I wish there had been a lawsuit early on with people speaking under oath. It's frightening to me that we could let regulations get so slack and lax that something like this could happen. Now, a county commissioner made those statements regarding another toxic waste site and the nightmare to the community it became, and I could not agree more. With those remarks in mind, I am here to express my concerns about the due diligence process and potential liabilities that could come from placing a school on a hazardous waste site. One example of my concern is this. It has been reported that there is a missing environmental report on this property. That underscores the type of negligence the speaker was frightened of, and for good reason. As you know, where there is negligence, there is potential liability. Who on this board is comfortable with the due diligence process so far? And if so, who of you are willing to accept any consequences for claims that may arise from building a school on a known toxic waste site? I did some research on a similar Square D facility, and the health agency in charge there ruled that no hospital, school, or daycare center could be built on that site until the courts deemed it safe for people most at risk. I urge this board to act as similar watchdogs because of the special circumstances and populations involved. After all, by your decisions, you are asking school staff to trust you in protecting them from any liability claims, and taxpayers to trust you in protecting them from any future liability expenses. You're asking school children to trust you in placing them in the safest environments, and their parents to trust you in protecting their most valuable gifts. I sincerely believe the due diligence process has a ways to go in order for you as a board to earn their trust. I think every one of you hopes that the best outcome happens with the STEL program, as do I. But to make that hope a reality, please consider the worst that could happen, because it has happened. And be extremely thorough in doing your due diligence duties as individuals and as a board as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holland. Any other public comment tonight? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Bennett.
I would like to speak on the Lester Road, but can I do that under the new business, or do I need to do it now?
Why don't you do it now? I'm not sure. I don't think anybody's requested. Let's go ahead and do it now. Yes, ma'am. Come on up, Ms. Bennett. And we'll attach any handouts that were given during public comment or otherwise, so we'll make that part of the record.
Commissioners, Chairman Gant, my name is Peggy Bennett. I want to talk just a minute about the Lester Highway. The DOT wants to give us 4 lanes with a 23-foot wide grassy median to extend it about 2.5 miles beyond where the road stops now. We won't be able to turn in the post office at all. We have to pass the post office and make a U-turn across 2 lanes of traffic and come back down to the post office to get there. As we leave, we have to do the same. We have to drive down the road and do the same thing. I know we had a state law not long ago that we can turn right on a red light if there's no traffic coming. This is causing us to drive several tenths of a mile in and out of the post office. It's not just the post office, it's the church and several other dwellings. They also want to place 5 roundabouts within 7/10 of a mile. Now, 5 roundabouts in 7/10 of a mile. They have finally dropped it to 2. One's directly in front of our Lester Fire Department. Who ever heard of a roundabout in front of a fire department? And the other one is at Alexander Road, where we have a stoplight, and it does very well. It will put 6 businesses out of of business and 1 home. This will also do away with 33 homes. We will lose 33 homes to widen this, and 6 businesses. The French Broad MPO has come up with a plan several years ago, about $10 million. We would like just a wee bit more than what they're asking, just a little, as compared to the almost $29 million. And I'm thinking, Ms. Jones and Mr. Newman, are you sitting on the French Broad MPO?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to make an appointment with you two to let me give you a personal tour of this atrocity. We don't need a 23-foot wide grass median at all. And we don't need 3 lanes going right through the middle of our little historical village where there's several historical homes. We do well. It's just going to be a speed trap. I hope you all will consider and give us all the help you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Any other public comment tonight? Mr. Yelton?
Don Yelton, and I hope I can get it in 3 minutes. I'll try. But I thank you for mentioning about speaking into the microphone. When I first came in, I thought I was in the Buncombe County courtroom. I couldn't hear nothing. And you all were talking among yourself, and those of you on the side, the staff, when you're talking to the commissioners, you're looking at the commissioners, and you turn your head away from the microphone, and when you talk real slow, you can't hear nothing. Of course, I don't need a microphone. I can throw the whole thing away. CTS. You're the only one left, David, when I first started warning about CTS. Did you think about that? I was sitting up there looking and thinking. CTS, Chemtronics, Beacon Plant, Sales Mill Bleacheries, the landfill in Fairview where somebody's right now getting bottled water because of TCE in her well. And I called Raleigh, and the Public Relations Department and Diener could not even tell me who was paying for that water. Diener also approved what's been going on at CTS, all back of this. So you can't trust Diener. And I'm all for education. Matter of fact, I talked with the superintendent of the schools out there a while ago and said, well, they're going to build this STEM school. It's political. It's going. It's like a steamroller. Right on through. And you all are probably going to approve it 7-1 or 7-0 tonight. But when it's done, they need to take what goes on in that STEM school and implement it in every high school. We don't need to have just one school where we're preparing students for today's world. We need to be doing that in all of our schools, and I thought that's what education was about. So I encourage you to please look at that, because Diener is not doing their job, never has done their job. CTS had major contamination in Los Angeles, California, and were forced to clean it up. And we know, and I don't know if you all were there or not, when Diener stood right in our county commissioner chambers and said they knew about the dumping in the Southside Village and didn't do anything about it. Those are the same people that's overseeing the studies we're doing now for the school side. And I'm here to tell you, as a scientist, as an environmental engineer, 3 tests of one well over 5 years does not a study make. You have to have more data points than that to have a general trend. And that needs to be considered very carefully when you're looking at exposing the children to the possibility, not the reality, but just the possibility of contamination. That's the problem.
Thank you, Mr. Yelton. Any other public comment? Yes, sir, in the back.
Thank you. My name's Dave Ogren, and I live on Sweden Creek Road. I've looked at a lot of the environmental testing that was done on, we'll call it the Square D building or the Buncombe County School Department, and I'm kind of shocked. What I find is incomplete and not really done well enough, and I'd like to urge everybody to slow down and wait a little while, do some better testing. That type of TCE contamination changes and becomes more volatile and more apparent. And what's happening throughout the country is they're lowering the standards for that. And TCE affects smaller children a lot more than older people in their reproductive type situation. So I just want to encourage people to just maybe take a better look, have some more thorough testing, because what's been done was really incomplete. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Algren. Any other public comment? Mr. Yelton? I mean, Mr. Rice? Already heard from Mr. Yelton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. STEM High School. You're going to hear a glossy report in a few minutes. I've heard it. And it's consultants. Consultants ain't nothing but somebody to tell you what you want to hear. STEM High School, they'll tell you what STEM means by the letters. I've come up with a different acronym. Stop Toxic Education, man. That's what STEM means. Now, yous have done been through the history. You got Inca plant on the list, and you got Chemtronics on the list, and we're talking about major stuff. You don't even know the extent of those right yet. So I need you to stop this thing now. The other thing is $5 million out of lottery funds. I heard the school and you all as commissioners, the ones that was here, raise Cain about the lottery fund because we didn't have teachers in school, we didn't have support staff, we didn't have curriculum material in the classroom, and now you're going to give $5 million in capital out of the lottery money when we're suffering in our school system, or either somebody lied, one or the other, probably both. Now, when we talk about the county, the state is already looking at a plant 1,000 feet from a toxic site. The former commissioner of Buncombe County is the one that was a plant manager at this plant when it was negotiated to be sold to Buncombe County, Mr. Daniels. He is a former, also a former general manager of the plant. How's that? Now, I wish you could postpone this and think about it because of CTS and because of these other sites. Toxic is a very serious thing. The other thing I'd like to talk to you about that no one brought up. I sat for 3 hours and listened to all this nonprofit stuff last week, and I want to mention something to you. DSS already contracts out $13.5 million, and you proposing $9 more million on top of that. I think there's too much duplication going on, and we need to stop it. I'd say that the taxpayers need some relief. That's 4.5 cents on the tax rate. The taxpayers need some relief, and I'll keep repeating it. Nonprofits don't need to be funded capital money. When we started that, it was with Pisgah Legal, and now it's begun to come on in again. So what is Buncombe County going to turn into? Are we just going to start funding everybody, anybody, anything? We've got to stop somewhere. Conflicts of interest. When you start talking about the nonprofits and the capital projects, I want you to better think seriously if there's a conflict of interest in what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Any other public comment tonight? If not, we'll proceed. If everybody could take a look at your phone and put it on silence. Sometimes they go off, and I'm kind of curious what your ringtone is, but it does disrupt the meeting and the speakers sometimes. So if everybody could just take a minute, you're not a bad person for having it on ring, but if you could put it on vibrate, I think we'll have a better meeting. Our first issue today is to follow the agenda as it's been proposed. Is there a motion?
Move to follow the agenda as published.
Second.
There's been a motion by Commissioner Jones, a second by Commissioner King. Is there any discussion? And as always, approval of the agenda will mean approval of the consent agenda items. If not, all those in favor of following the agenda as proposed, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. We will follow the agenda for the rest of the way. Next up, we have good news. We have Superintendent Phil Francis with the Blue Ridge Parkway to give us a report on how our America's favorite road is doing. And Superintendent, it's good to see you again. Thank you for your service, and look forward to hearing how the Parkway's doing.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation to be here tonight. Well, we're in year 8 for me here on the Blue Ridge Parkway, and you may have heard on April 1st I'm going to retire. And that's after 41 years of working for the National Park Service and never having a bad job or living in a bad place. And it's nice to be back home in North Carolina to end my career, that's for sure. But we've done a lot. We've finished our general management plan, the very first one in 75 years, 77 years actually, for the Blue Ridge Parkway. We've completed a new communications center for our staff to help secure their safety as well as the safety of the public, and that was all done with non-federal dollars. It was all done with donated funds. We've completed a land exchange with the town of Blowing Rock to provide them with drinking water and with us for 192 acres of land. We're working on the Moses Cone plan, which we're nearly finished. We've completed the National Register nomination for historic places for the Moses Cone House, and that is now in Raleigh for review. The National Historic Landmark designation is nearly complete as well. We've done a lot of things. We've got new concession contracts for many of our concessions up and down the Parkway. The Folk Arts Center has its first concessions contract. Crabtree Falls is doing well. We changed the name from Crabtree Meadows to Crabtree Falls, thinking that visitors will like waterfalls more than meadows. And it's true. And visitation's gone up there. We have are in the process of looking at concessions contract with Peaks of Otter in Virginia, the Bluffs Lodge and the Bluffs Restaurant, Northwest Trading Post, and next year we'll be working on the concessions contract for the Pisgah Inn. They're all doing well. Visitation is up at our visitor center here in Asheville, although visitation is slightly down. Parkway-wide, due to snow in October, we were down about 1% last year over the previous year. The good news is, too, with regard to how we're treating our visitors. I think we're treating our visitors well. We're being very efficient. We're spending less than $1 per visitor on the Blue Ridge Parkway. Yet we continue to remain the most visited unit of the entire national park system, all 398 units in 49 states and the trust territories. So we've got a group of committed, dedicated employees who believe very strongly in protecting the country's natural and cultural resources while providing for enjoyment of those resources and leaving those resources unimpaired for future generations. Very dedicated to the mission, even though we continue to get smaller in number. We have lost now 75 permanent jobs out of 241 where we were in 2001. Over a third of our maintenance crew is now gone. Over a third of our administrative staff is gone. Over a third of our resource management staff is gone. We have kept intact the staff that runs our visitor centers and our law enforcement staff in order to protect the public and to protect our resources. These are challenging days, and we're still waiting for a budget. We're operating now under a continuing resolution. We're waiting to see what's going to happen with the sequester, and we're waiting to see what would happen if there's an appropriation later this year to carry us through the end of this fiscal year. So it's an interesting time for us, a lot of uncertainty. Yet the good news is we have a lot of dedicated people who really want to do the right thing. In our general management plan, we included, I think, a really key paragraph, and that is we're committed to working with communities because we recognize who owns the parkway. It's not me. It's not the National Park Service. It's the American public. And we want to engage the public and the communities through which we pass and to make sure that we all join together in protecting the parkway for future generations. After all, it is an economic engine. Over $2.2 billion is spent by the 16 million people who pass through the parkway each year in the 29 counties. And we want to make sure that we don't kill that goose that's laying the golden egg year in and year out. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you for your invitation to be here. You may have noticed that I didn't mention the overlook for Asheville. It is a tough economic time right now to be thinking about adding new facilities, but I haven't forgotten about it.
Are there any questions from Superintendent Francis? Is there a motion to permit the chair to honor Mr. Francis?
Make a motion.
A motion by Commissioner Belcher, second by Commissioner King. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I come down here. Like to. So that's what it looks like down there. Or up here, looking up at you. No, it's. I've had the pleasure of knowing Phil Francis since I've been a commissioner. Phil didn't tell you, he started off as a costumed interpreter at Kings Mountain Battleground. He was a Grover native, so he just had a little drive over there to Kings Mountain Military Battleground. And he did start 41 years ago. Phil Francis has worked in Washington, Santa Fe, Yosemite, Shenandoah, and he worked at Smoky Mountain as the administrator before he came here, I believe. So what we have, some of the things we're the most proud of in our community have Phil Francis' fingerprints all over it, maybe his gun print as when you were an interpreter for the Kings Mountain folks. As he said, we had 19 million people when he started. The visitation is still the most visited park, the Blue Ridge Parkway. He's done the best he can, done a yeoman's job for having his budget cut every year and having continuing resolutions instead of having some money to work with. So it's my pleasure to do two things. I would like to declare, now he picked this date. April 1st wasn't our idea. I know April 1st has other connotations, but the Buncombe County Commission declared April 1st, 2013, his retirement date, Phil Francis Day. On behalf of all Buncombe County citizens, we take the opportunity of your retirement to express our respect and appreciation for the dedication and commitment that you've shown this community. Your leadership and vision have made a lasting contribution to the lives of our citizens and to the future of our national park system and the Blue Ridge Parkway. Let's give this man a hand. And just in case it gets cold up on that parkway, the commission has, this is a blanket made by a local crafter. Kathy, do you know the name? I forget. Someone in Buncombe County, but Weaverville. We give this to VIP people. I want everybody to see this. This is to remind you of your home and how much we think of you and what you've done for Buncombe County. And Superintendent, we will miss you. You have done wonderful work, and you've made a difference. And we always like to honor folks that have made a difference and have.
Well, thank you very much. Let me mention one thing. Thank you, David, and thanks to the Commission for this great honor. It's an honor to be here to begin with. Now, regarding dates, April 1st, I thought I'd tell my staff April Fools when I walk in, and you can go to my office and not let them know what I mean by that. I thought that might be fun, but really, I think the date I started officially is representative of how much I care for this place, and I started on Christmas Day. It was a great present for me.
What about that?
Thanks to all of you.
Thank you. The last thing, I had the privilege to do a presentation on the 75th anniversary, and I learned, it was in Roanoke, and I had the honor of spending some time with the folks up there, and I saw how much the respect North Carolina and Virginians have for you. And it's all over, not just Buncombe County, it's the whole area, and we will miss you. Next up, we have a public hearing on the Matthew Lyerly zoning request to to move it to commercial service, and we have Debbie Trumpy to tell us about that. Ms. Trumpy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Matthew Lyerly has applied to rezone a portion of tax lot pin 9629157269 and tax lot pin 9629241922. Together, they total approximately 11.7 acres. They are zoned both residential low density and R1 single family residential. And he's requested to be rezoned to CS Commercial Service District. The properties are located at the intersection of Old County Home Road and New Leicester Highway. One lot is 1.33 acres. It's currently zoned R1 and it fronts on Old County Home Road. The other lot is a 14-acre tract, and he has requested to rezone the eastern portion of that, and it's about 10.4 acres, currently zoned to both RLD and R1, and that lot has frontage on New Leicester Highway. The application is to leave the western steeper portions, the RLD that it's currently zoned, and then to rezone the eastern portion, which is better laying and has better access to New Leicester Highway. The 1.3 acre lot has a single family home on it now, and the larger lot is currently undeveloped. Property to the north of this is zoned CS by the county, and properties to the east of this are in the City of Asheville's jurisdiction and have commercial zoning of HB and CB2. The surrounding area is a mix of residential and commercial development. The requested CS zoning is consistent with the comprehensive land use plan, as the update indicates CS is intended to provide suitable locations for clustered commercial development to encourage concentration of commercial activity in those specified areas with access to major traffic arterials. Given the commercial uses in the area and adjacent commercial zoning, the CS zoning would be consistent with surrounding uses, reasonable and in the public interest, and the Planning Department recommends approval of the request. On January 4th of this year, the Planning Board held a public hearing on this application. 4 people spoke during that hearing, and they were opposed to this rezoning. Their main concerns were with traffic coming, commercial traffic coming into the property that would be going by their homes, and possible stormwater runoff. I would like to say if this were rezoned to be commercial service, anytime someone develops a commercial property next to residential properties, the zoning ordinance does require buffering between those two properties. And of course, any development would require stormwater regulation to meet stormwater requirements. The Planning Board found that the proposed rezoning would be consistent with the land use plan, reasonable and in the public interest, as the property has access to a major traffic arterial and is consistent with the surrounding commercial development along New Leicester Highway. The Planning Board recommended in a vote of 8-1 to approve this rezoning. And I'd be happy to address any questions you have right now.
What is the level of buffering? What is required there?
2 rows of evergreen trees.
Is there any size requirement of the trees?
There is, and I want to say it's starts at 6 feet to grow up to a little bit higher than that, I think maybe 9 feet. I'm not positive of that.
And this would be applicable, this would have, and the stormwater ordinance we passed a couple years ago would be required here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Ms. Trumpy? Thank you. If not, we'll have a public hearing. We'll take comments for 3 minutes. I'll declare the public hearing open at 5:21. Any members of the public wish to be heard on this rezoning request? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd just like to say one thing.
You can
First,
say your
my
name
name
and where
is
you're
Sam
from.
Edgley.
Okay, Mr. Edgley, thank you.
All right. My property adjoins this piece of property. And I only have one concern, or actually two concerns. One, does anybody have any idea what will be done there? And the second, the property lines are not right as far as my property next to theirs. So if somebody could contact me and maybe we get this worked out, I'll be happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edgley. Yes, sir, young man. Then Mr. Rice will have you after this gentleman.
Good afternoon. My name is Spencer Lyerly, and I'm Matthew Lyerly's brother. I was just coming forth to give some more clarification on what we plan on doing with the property. I own a grading business, and currently I operate is right out on the Madison County, Buncombe County line. So it takes me quite a while to drive in with my equipment every day. I plan on, in the near future, putting a small shop that I can work on equipment and use as a base of operation for my small grading company. The second thing that we would do, and this is much further down the road, within a 5-year window, we plan on placing some storage units on the property. And as far as I know, that is all the commercial development that we foresee within the next 5 to 10 years. That's pretty much everything.
Okay.
Any questions or anything that need clarification on? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lyerly. Mr. Rice? Does anyone want to speak after Mr. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was waiting on one of you to ask this question. They was 8 members voted for it and 1 against. I think it'd be great to hear what that person voted against for, because it might make some more logic to it.
Thank you. All right. Any other members of the public wish to be heard during our public hearing on this rezoning? Yes, sir.
My name is Joseph Spivey, and my son and I own the property next to probably where the entrance to whatever is going to be there is. It's a very small, if you'll take a look at the drawing, very small lot, 50 by 150, I believe it is. And if the zoning board has already voted 8-1, I got a feeling this probably is going to go through. Sounds like, but I want to, for Mr. Lyerly, I met your brother at one time, and I'd like for him to look, and you guys, to look at this through maybe my eyes, and realize that probably our property could not ever be a commercial property because it's so small. There's no parking or whatever. So I can envision other things being there besides what was just talked about. Other properties that might not be too desirable for residential property to be adjacent to. And if you'll remember, or the people who are here know about what is on the opposite side of this property, and it is, if houses were next to this particular situation, it wouldn't be a desirable place. I'm going to look at it for a moment from Mr. Lyerly's situation, and if I had just purchased that property, I would be thinking about maybe flipping that property and maybe selling it in lots or smaller pieces. And if it was zoned commercial, it would certainly be more desirable for purchasing that property. A lot of money is probably could be made in doing that. That may not be their intentions. I don't know. It could be. So that could be further down the road than the 5 or 10 years that he's talking about. But we, as a small individual residential owner, would be have more problems with the coming and going of the traffic, because we would be right next to the entrance of where he would be coming and going. I would ask that you not pass this zoning proposition.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Spivey.
Excuse me, Chairman, can the colored map be pulled up there and show us where his lot is, where he's talking about? Can anybody do that? I mean, I've got it here, but my eyes are not that good. I'm trying to figure out where his lot is.
I have a map. Do you have a map?
Well, we're getting ready to pull it up, I think. I mean, I have the colored map. I'm just trying to figure out where your place is. There it is. Can you tell us where your place is on that map?
I think it's spotted. Side to the smallest lot, adjacent to that property.
I'm sorry, say it again, please.
On the south side, adjacent to
Okay.
the property at the entrance from the Old County Home Road.
Your entrance is off Old County Home? Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right, any other member of the public wish to be heard? If not, I'll declare the public hearing closed at 5:30. Any questions from the commission or comments?
Mr. Gant, I understand the young gentleman what they're wanting to try to do, but I do understand the gentleman up front. I really wanted to try to look at properties before we actually tried to zone them. There's some issues here, best I can tell, with this one, with property lines and stuff like that. So I would look at, let's postpone this one until we all have a better idea of this issue.
All right, I'll take that as a motion to table the, well, let me ask this, should we do all three, there's several, looks like there's several parcels, should we do them all together? Or is it just one big parcel? Two parcels, should we have?
It's one application though, isn't it?
And can we handle the, I guess we did the public hearing with one, the two for one. Can we do, can we consider this separately for each parcel, or should we do them together?
It can be one. It's
Okay.
set up to be one. And pursuant to our rules, just as a point of order, we don't table unless you want to waive the rules. It'd be set to a date certain if it was the position of the board to postpone.
Okay, all right. All right, then I guess I would entertain a motion to approve or disapprove the.
Well, you just took Mr. Fryer's request to postpone it as a motion, so we're waiting for a second right now.
Okay, is there a second to Mr. Fryer's motion to table?
Could I ask a quick question
Yes, ma'am.
before we get that second? So in terms of the, property line reference, what kind of due diligence how much of that has to be determined in order to submit a rezoning application? I guess I don't want us to pretend like we're getting in a world of whatever title searches and stuff like that. So if you could kind of weigh in on that.
We don't get involved with that day to day. You find two lawyers, you get two opinions. You find two surveyors, you get two different surveys. Sometimes they're close, but not quite. And a lot of those properties, especially outside of town, Leicester and other places in the rural communities, a lot of those are surveyed long ago when survey rules were indistinct and they just dragged chains through the valley. So that could be part of it, how old the survey is, how old the deeds are. So typically, it's not something that we can get involved in, but if they were putting in, if neighbors are putting in fences or cutting in roads, then it becomes more of an issue because someone might have to survey it because a neighbor might say, I don't own that. But to answer your question directly, no, we can't get involved with that directly.
So in the event that the presented property was rezoned and there was a dispute, and then it was determined that in fact what was rezoned was there were different ownership, does the rezoning happen to, it goes with the property as opposed to ownership of
Well, we're talking, the issue with the property line here is more particular than the zoning maps are designed to be. The zoning maps are based on the parcel and the ownership. So I think that the rezoning would be for the parcels in question, and the mapping office and the tax office does its best to follow what the plats are if they're there. If there's no survey, they'll use a MapQuest thing to try to plop it on the site, but this zoning will follow the parcel.
And we
if
feel
there's a
very
corrective
very
survey,
clear about the parcel determination then.
it's usually pretty close.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. So it's really, that's very helpful. So it's not really property lines, it's about parcel determination.
More general than the
Gotcha.
exact location of the property line, yes.
Thank you.
If I understand correctly, if I'm looking at the map correctly, what is in question is the piece of property that is on Old County Home Road. There's not a question about the part that borders Lester Highway.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to recognize him, even though we've had a public hearing, we've closed it, because I think if the board has questions, is the board comfortable with that? Since he raised the issue. If you'll, can you hear him from where he is? I can't hear real good. No. Go ahead. Okay, well, if you could approach the, so we can make sure we record. I'm sorry to get you to.
We all do, brother.
Okay. Do you think they could get that map back up on there?
You bring the map back? And maybe not.
There we go.
Here it is.
Okay. Let me see here. All right.
Make it bigger.
The top, which would be the northwest corner. Okay? That's what I'm talking about. When I bought that property in 1997, I believe it was, there is a fence there and 2 pins. What I've got shows just 1 pin there, and instead of following the fence lines the way it used to be, now it comes down into my property, and I have 2 buildings there, and 3/4 of one is on this property, and a little bit of the other one. I don't know who made the changes and how it happened, but I was just afraid somebody buys that property or rezones it, then I lose my buildings. See where I'm concerned? So, I guess the best way to do would be to get with somebody here or associated with you that does all these plannings here, and maybe we can come to a solution to this. But, you know, I don't like, it's not a whole lot of land, but to me it is, it looks like about 200 feet long, the max of Probably about 60 feet, which is also my lawn, my fruit trees. So I'd just like to keep what I have. That's all.
Well, that's fair enough, Mr. Edgley. Any other questions while he's up?
I have a,
Yes, ma'am.
a
Commissioner
question
Frost.
not for the gentleman, but for my own edification and maybe for folks who are not completely familiar with the zoning process. If somebody can give like a short version of, maybe Debbie can do it or Mr. Creighton, but by the time you all hear these appeals, there's been a significant amount of due diligence involved with this. Is that correct? I mean, is there a significant amount of research into these with the planning board and?
Well, never in a situation do we get into, okay, is somebody's property line right or wrong? I mean, obviously, we notice everybody within 1,000 feet of, okay, there's going to be a rezoning. And like I said, the planning board goes through, the hearing process, whether to recommend to y'all to change it or not. But never have I gotten in a situation where, we just don't do that. I mean, I'm not talking about on rezoning. I'm just talking about that's an issue between property owners, not the county.
Right. It's somewhat of a lengthy process to go before the planning board is my point.
No, it is. It takes us, we advertise and then, then it's got to be set, the meeting's got to be set up and then we've got to advertise that, you're coming here, so yes.
John, to Mr. Rice's point, do you know what the concern was about the one vote, the dissenting vote, or do you know anything about that?
Remember? I'll have to ask Debbie. I don't.
She just cast a negative vote
Okay.
and didn't say why.
I don't recall any conversation there at the end.
Okay.
Well, I've
Thank you.
got a question toward some of these other ones, and this is probably more to Mr. Frew. If there is a property line dispute, and Mr. Lyerly has come in and asked to rezone his property, we would have no right to rezone anything other than his property, would we? I mean, we do not have any other authority to go beyond wherever his line is, and if there's a dispute, wouldn't that be between him and Mr. Edgley or somebody else?
Well, we have the zoning maps. So this is a zoning map amendment asking to change one particular parcel from one zoning classification to another. So again, I mean, that's based on the best information available to the mapping officers over in the tax office, which shows up on GIS. So it's the parcel. So to the best of our information, the area indicated on the map is owned by Lyerly, but there may be a boundary line dispute. I mean, and it might cut across the line somehow, but the application process won't and can't change that. And I can't give specific advice, but I mean, this like John was saying, this has to be a matter between two adjacent owners and what they might want to do in terms of getting a survey or making sure that their rights to their own property are preserved.
Okay, well, I think the point that this gentleman made, if he's concerned about his property, certainly that's not what zoning does, is take somebody's property. You might say what you can do or not do within your property, but you can't take somebody's property from a zoning.
Yeah, the zoning classification doesn't take anybody's property, but if you and I live together, one is parcel 1 and one is parcel 2, I mean, the zoning map amendment's going to instruct the zoning administrator to change the zoning classification of one particular parcel. If the parcel lines shift, the zoning map will shift.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Sir.
And this is I think our second rezoning we're doing, so I think we're trying to make sure. I want to make sure I'm getting all the facts and understanding them accurately. And I'm actually still a little unclear on which property is your property. Could I ask the gentleman to actually? It might be helpful if in the future there's, the little laser pointer things, or when somebody's just describing, well, my property is the one over into this direction. There's a lot of properties on this map, so I want to make sure I'm crystal clear. Would it be okay for the gentleman to approach and just point on my map? I just want to make sure I'm clear on which property is his. Or could you show me, Mr. Frew? That'd be great.
Let's ask Judy for the map. Okay, on that map up there, the parcel in question is sort of a big fat shaped C with a horseshoe spot in the middle.
Right.
The one parcel, with your comments immediately a moment ago, is the yellow area in the northwest corner of the property.
So where Toad Road is?
Yes, at the end of what's shown as Toad
Intersected by
Road.
Toad Road.
At the end of Toad Road, right up there in the northwest corner.
Okay, thank you.
The other parcel that was mentioned is
The teardrop.
is yellow in the bottom of the horseshoe area, right above where the bottom of that C goes in and hits County Home Road. That was the other parcel mentioned. Has a small house on it.
Okay. And so I have one question for the planning staff on this. Then, so if I'm interpreting this correctly, if this property, if we do rezone the property to this commercial use, there are these other properties that are zoned residential that would basically be entirely surrounded by the commercially zoned properties. And I guess my question is, does that raise a concern?
Those, I think you're talking about that are surrounded by the requested
Horseshoe.
rezoning that are along New Leicester Highway.
That's right.
Yes, those would remain residential. There is one commercial business in that area that is zoned residential right now.
Well, just a procedural, I kind of agree. I think we need to have the capacity, as presentations are given, that we can pinpoint where these are in the future. So if we could make arrangements, I don't know if we should have a iPad at the I want to say witness stand, not the witness stand, but the podium there. So people could designate and or a pointer in the future. And I would also number the maps, because we've got several maps, and so we could, get right to the one. I think we know which one you're looking at now. So what's the pleasure? Any other questions or any other comments about the Lyerly rezoning request? Okay.
I will venture forth. I think that this is
Excuse me, Commissioner
Yes,
Newman. We still have Commissioner Fryer's motion pending.
I'm doing discussion on his motion, then I'm going to call for a second, and then I'm going to vote on that. But that was my role. But I wanted to get discussion from everybody first. Go ahead.
So, I guess I think this is not an easy call for me. I think there's on the one hand, this is a property that there's a lot of commercial property on Leicester Highway, and I agree with the staff analysis that there's good reason to support the idea that this would be an appropriate use at the site. But I think some of the neighbors' concerns are legitimate as well, and I do have some concern about how some of them are, the extent of this commercial. If this were fully built out, and we can't just when we even if the property owner is saying, here's what I'm planning to do, we really have to think about the full spectrum of things that could happen on the property if the property were sold or someone had different plans in the future. And I think there is some validity to the concern about the extent of commercial intrusion on the residential properties around it. So I think it's a close call in my book. I think that if it's not our place though to make decisions on potential property boundary disputes, so I don't think that can really doesn't weigh into my thinking on this. So although it's a tough call, I mean, for myself, I won't second the motion to defer. I think it's just this is a judgment call, and I'd be prepared to support acting on it tonight.
All right. We have a motion without a second at this point to defer consideration. Is there any discussion of the motion to defer? Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and ask for any discussion of the overall merits. All right. If none, is there a second to Commissioner Fryer's motion? If not, the motion dies for lack of second. Is there a motion to approve the zoning as recommended by staff and planning board?
Move to approve.
I'll second it.
And a motion by Commissioner Newman, a second by Commissioner Frost. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the staff and planning board recommendation? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The vote is 6-1, Fryer against. Thank you. The next matter of business we have is, we have no county manager report, I believe we determined, Dr. Green. Next order of business is new business, French Broad River Metropolitan Planning Organization, and we have Luba here to talk about what this is about. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and County Commissioners, thank you for having me here tonight to discuss the French Broad River MPO changes to the Memorandum of Understanding. My name is Luba Zuiva, as Chairman Gann has mentioned, and I work at Land of Sky Regional Council. French Broad River MPO could be a side entity, but it really makes more sense for us to be housed within another entity, which is currently we housed at Land of Sky, because we have relatively few staff. So it makes sense for us to be housed at Land of Sky, where they can provide administrative, HR, and other support to our ongoing tasks. And if I can bring up the PowerPoint, please. I wanted to talk first a little bit about the history of the MPO as organizations which were created by the federal government. So MPOs were set up in the 60s initially. At that time, there were a lot of concerns coming out because there were some major highway projects being built where the local government stakeholders and the general public were not fully informed of the process, were not fully involved. There was not a due process for public comment. So that's why the Metropolitan Planning Organizations were set up to really facilitate a better transportation planning and public participation process at the regional level, where the local stakeholders can come together, prioritize transportation projects, and bring it to the state and federal officials for funding. French Broad River MPO was set up in the 1960s as well. It was initially centered around Asheville and Buncombe area, and then our territory is largely defined by U.S. Census. So with 2000 census, the urbanized area has grown to include portions of Haywood and Henderson County. And most recently, we've had another census in 2010. At that point, the urbanized area has expanded into portions of Madison County and a tiny sliver of Transylvania County. So this expansion, due to the census designation of urbanized area boundaries, is the main reason why we're coming here tonight to ask you to amend the MIU changes. As a result of the urbanized area changes, we have to bring in additional members to the MPO. As I mentioned, we are housed at Land of Sky Regional Council. And I wanted to mention a couple of the projects on which we've been supporting some of the initiatives that might be important to Buncombe County. One of them is we have additional other planners on staff, and Bill Aker, for example, has worked with Mountain Mobility, helping them find grant opportunities to substitute alternative fuel technologies for some of the paratransit vans and other transit vehicles, and that helps save the cost to Buncombe County and Mountain Mobility and provide better service. Another example is Buncombe County Greenways Master Plan that was partially funded with the French Broad River MPO Transportation Planning Funds with a local match. Another example is with directly allocated surface transportation dollars that the MPO has the power to allocate in our region. We'll be funding sidewalk projects on New Leicester Highway and Hendersonville Road going forward in 2014 and 2015. And also the Black Mountain Trailblazer Service, the operations for that system are currently funded partially with a FTA JARC grant, and the MPO oversees the process to review and select those grant applications. So those are just some of the examples. There are a variety of other projects that go on, such as the Leicester Highway project, which we will be discussing later tonight. Buncombe County does have representation on all committees. We have a staff level committee, TCC, where Denise Brain and Josh O'Connor, and I believe most recently another staff member has been added to represent Buncombe County on the TCC. And on our Transportation Advisory Committee, Commissioner Holly Jones and Commissioner Brownie Newman are currently representatives from Buncombe County. And our next meeting is next Thursday, the 28th. Sorry, thought there was a map that got skipped. So as a reminder, we are bringing in additional new members. So Madison County is coming in as a full voting member. The town of Mars Hill is also coming in. There are portions of Buncombe County which were previously covered by the Rural Planning Organization, Land of Sky RPO, which are now coming into the MPO planning area instead. That's along the Jupiter Road area. And then Transylvania County will be coming in as an ex officio non-voting member. So they have chosen at this time not to pay dues to the MPO, but they can still participate in discussion. This map just highlights some of the areas where the urbanized area boundary has changed, and as a result, the lighter blue highlights the planning area. So the planning area has to include the territory where we expect the urbanized area to grow in the next 20 years. So it's a little larger than the dark blue urbanized area, which the census makes us include. So largely this MIU update is due to the census changes. And there's, we do have to submit the update MIU to the federal government, ideally by the end of March. So we're hoping to have all the local governments adopt the MIU and to also have the MPOTAC adopt the MIU at the March 28th meeting. One of the changes are some language changes. For example, we're changing the reference to the new federal legislature, which is now MAP 21, just got adopted in July of 2012 instead of T21. And we're also changing the reference to metropolitan planning area as opposed to metropolitan area boundary that's due to the federal regulations. And one of the language changes we're making as well is we would like to start calling the Transportation Advisory Committee as MPO board to make it more clear to the general public that this is the body made up of the elected officials as opposed to just a staff level technical committee. Another change that's happening is we're taking out reference to the priority needs list because at the state level there has been a change to set up what's called SPOT, Strategic Office of Prioritization, to prioritize projects based on data and not simply based on individual sensitivities. So because this process has already been spelled out at the state level, we will continue to prepare a prioritized list of projects at the MPO level. However, we no longer will be referring to it as the priority needs list. And we'll be spelling out more details in the bylaws instead of the MIU. And with that, I'd like to open up for questions.
Got any questions for Luba? If not, is there a motion to adopt the memorandum of understanding?
Chairman Gann, I move approval of this memorandum of understanding.
There a second?
I'll second.
A motion by Commissioner Jones, a second by Commissioner Frost. Is there any discussion or any other questions? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next up, we'll hear from Dr. Tony Baldwin about the School Capital Commission Fund Ordinance and the request for the STEM school funding. Superintendent, good to see you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Gant. Thank you for having me as the full commissioners. I do want to recognize our chairman of our school board, Mr. Reinhardt, as well as one of our officials, Mr. Pat Bryant, who is also on our board, Mr. Tim Fairley, who is the director of our facilities, and also Mr. Bernie Sosha, who facilitates our capital funding. Again, I'm very excited to be here. I can tell you in my career, this will be in my top 3 list in terms of the enthusiasm that I've received from our community, and especially 2 groups I want to recognize, and that is our business organization, our business people in Buncombe County and Asheville City, and also our colleges and universities. I do want to clarify up front, and I apologize if you already know this, But I want to clarify that the capital funding we're requesting, lottery funding, $5 million of lottery funds, lottery funding currently is restricted to capital needs. In other words, it can't be used for operations. And I've heard that sort of mistaken, that fallacy over the last several months. We cannot use that funding for operations. Now, however, if you have the power to work with our legislators and allow some flexibility, I think we would all appreciate that. And also to clarify, those are existing undesignated funds. We are also asking for $500,000 of Article 39 funding. I think you're familiar with that particular source. Again, it is restricted to capital needs. However, the difference is that in Article 39, that particular source allows us some flexibility with technology. And with that, I'm going to define, as one gentleman had suggested I was going to do anyway, I'm going to define what STEM means, but I can tell you the only acronym, the only definition I'm aware of is science, technology, engineering, and math. And with that said, I want to tell you why, as superintendent, that I believe so strongly in the importance of this STEM high school for our kids. I saw a recent national study that was released in January 2013, and it was done by the National Association of Colleges and Employers across the United States. And it identified, in terms of college majors, those that are majoring in the STEM fields have the highest starting salaries in comparison to all other college majors. In fact, does anybody have any guess what the #1 highest ranking particular career in STEM is for highest pay? It's in engineering. Probably not a surprise to you. But this is the fact that I zeroed in on. STEM-related jobs are growing 60% faster than any other career field. Now, that's an important statistic. And in our business, we are constantly looking at the crystal ball. It is clear in our crystal ball that STEM is absolutely crucial for our students and successful careers in the future. Let me give you a little bit of history. March 2011, our school board unanimously approved the closing of our Career Education Center. Why did we do that? A couple of reasons. There were budget concerns, and second, what was happening is we were finding that our numbers in terms of student enrollment were dwindling. And what we determined is that we had a career ed center we were proud of, but it was the 20th century model. So what was said to our public at that closing is a commitment that we would reopen that facility. But when we reopened it, we would make sure that it offered a curriculum that met the needs of the 21st century. And I believe that that's what this particular program will do. That fall, again 2011, we put together one of the largest committees that I've ever facilitated, and that was about 36 members, included curriculum staff inside Buncombe County Schools. It included professional agencies in Buncombe County associated with STEM. It included local colleges and universities, AB Tech, our wonderful partner, UNC Asheville, who also houses NC State, who is hosting an engineering program there on the UNCA campus. We had a rep at our table, Western Carolina, and Mars Hill. And by the way, Mars Hill has one of the fastest growing biotech majors in this particular area of Western North Carolina. They were at the table. We also brought a number of business organizations, local businesses, to the table, along with, again, local government officials. So that committee began that planning. And so for the past year and a half, We have been hosting speakers from all over this state. We have been taking visits across the state of North Carolina. And by the way, I think if you research this, you're going to find out that lottery funds have been used all across this state to fund renovations to house STEM programs as well as other innovative high school programs across this state. So it's not unusual. We established 4 non-negotiables. And this is what makes this STEM high school unique, because what we were asked several times is, well, why don't you just simply take the STEM program and let's disperse it in all 6 of our high schools? The difference is it's a school. It is a very special, it will be a school as you walk in that will be very different from any school any of us in this room attended. Problem-solving based, inquiry based, space, open space, tied into careers, apprenticeships, internships, tied into colleges and universities, college credits. And those were the non-negotiables, by the way. We started out saying that STEM must be integrated across the entire curriculum. So in other words, it's not just a STEM course. Now we do have a course, by the way, called Project Lead the Way, and we have that now in every one of our 7 middle schools. So our middle schoolers have an opportunity, everyone in Buncombe County, they have an opportunity to get that exploration, that little bit of a foundation to determine whether or not at the high school level this is the direction that they want to go. But in the STEM high school, science, math, technology, and applied engineering shows up in every course. That's what makes it special. Social studies, language arts, science, math, technology, engineering. Secondly, I talked about college-university connections. We want students inside that school to have the opportunity to get college credits. We've already come to the table with AB Tech. We already have a strong partnership. We think we can make it better. I've had a number of discussions with Chancellor Ponder, NC State as well. They understand that with this particular facility, there's an opportunity for us to do one of the best jobs, I think, in this state of connecting with post-secondary opportunities. Third, we've talked about the career connections. Any student that enters into that program, we want to guarantee them an internship or apprenticeship in a particular area with a local business here in Western North Carolina. And I truly believe we can do it because we've had too many of our businesses, all of those you would recognize, say to us, we're in. We're in. Just make this happen. Give us that opportunity for your kids. And then finally, it's going to be a focus on technology. And technology that's used inside the classroom that's applied to the instructional techniques, not just simply a device handed to a kid. But that's at the core, and those are non-negotiables. Now, we were lucky in that the state of North Carolina, the State Board of Education, actually has a blueprint. And every STEM program in the state is going to be evaluated off of that blueprint. So we were fortunate enough to have those guidelines. In fact, that's going to be really the guiding blueprint for what this particular program looks like. We've heard a lot about making sure we include all stakeholders, especially our parents. And what I would say to you is that that large committee, 60% of them were parents of kids in Buncombe County schools or Asheville City schools. So those parents were represented there, but we know that we need further input. So we have scheduled, looking at the possibility on April the 8th to have an electronic town hall. We will send invitations out to all of our parents. We'll focus on middle school parents, especially those parents of rising 8th graders, because that would be the first targeted class, 9th grade class, as we project and hope an opening for fall 2014. We're also going to follow that up with going out into our 6 districts and meeting face-to-face with parents to educate them regarding the benefits, career benefits especially of STEM, and then to make sure we're gathering that input. So again, with your approval for the use of those capital funds, and whether lottery and 39, our goal is to open those doors August 2014 for a first class of 9th graders. And we also will pursue legislative status that would be granted for an innovative cooperative high school, which is similar to what our early college is on the AB Tech campus. And those of you that have, I think, children in the Asheville City system, that's also equivalent to the SILSA program there. I'm not here to debate disinformation, but I'm going to take this opportunity because what's been brought up to you is regarding issues concerning the environment. I will start out by saying that that was initiated with a claim that was sent to NC Diener that Buncombe County Schools would be building a brand new high school. Building a new high school, not renovation, but building it on 128 Bingham Road. Now I want you to understand, our campus is on 175 Bingham Road. Across the street is 128 Bingham. And yes, that was identified as a hazardous site a number of years ago. It also is the location of the former primary plant for Square D. But I also want you to know that it currently houses multiple offices, and 2 of those office centers house federal government employees. I also want you to know that over 200 employees are currently working in a building on 175 Bingham Road, including Tony Baldwin, including Mr. Bryant, our representative from the Irwin District, including his wife. Now, throughout this process, I heard a lot about what's coming with STEM, but I never really heard an outside concern about people at either site and their particular health. I've heard a lot about due diligence. Let me tell you, as superintendent of Buncombe County Schools, to you as county commissioners, I don't believe any citizen in this county could ask more due diligence than was provided by this Buncombe County School Board. In fact, it's clearly my opinion that they went over and above any required standard that we would have heard from North Carolina Diener. They went over and above. I want you to be aware that we have, since this issue came up, and also understand that this project has been delayed by a year. The original schedule had us opening this STEM high school in the fall of 2013. It was delayed because of these concerns. As a result, this board committed to some significant testing to take place on this site. The accusations continue. I live within walking distance of CTS. I've lived there all my life. Family lives there. One thing we have said from the start, this is not CTS. There has never been well water drunk by individuals off of that property. It's all been city water. That was a key difference from the start. We said it, we screamed it from the rooftops, but they went over and beyond that. I'm saying the school board, in that additional monitoring and testing was put in place. One monitoring well, which was existing, was tested, came back non-detect. Square D came back in and added a second monitoring well, non-detect. This is initial testing that's happened within the year. We actually brought in Mountain Environmental and did 8 additional subslab or soil samples to test this. In fact, at the February board meeting, and Dr. Green, I'm going to leave this with you for the commissioners. This is a public document, soil vapor sampling report, because what was committed to by this board was a 4-year monitoring plan. Again, to go beyond what any requirement would have come from us from a state or federal agency to put in place additional testing. We actually had the first stage of that testing to take place in January. The reason being that experts told us that the most efficient time, effective time to monitor, to test is in the winter months. That took place, and I got those results the same day of our February board meeting, and I presented this to the board. Retests were done, including the 2 monitoring wells, additional subslab samples, total of 8 samples that came back to us, all non-detect. I'm superintendent of this Buncombe County school system, and my #1 mission is to do what's right for kids. The right thing is for us to move on with this. We cannot afford to hold 25,600 students at hostage one more year. We cannot afford for one more year to allow a full class of students in our Buncombe County school system not to have the opportunity to take advantage of this particular high school. And I'm going to agree with a statement that was made earlier, because I believe it too. I believe that what the model that we use in this particular STEM high school, I truly do believe that it is a model that we're going to be able in the future, after Tony Baldwin retires probably, but we're going to be able to use this as a wonderful model in all of our schools. This is a central location. This allows us to put in place what I truly will believe to be the top STEM high school in the state of North Carolina. And the reason I say that is because of the partnerships and the enthusiasm and the connection that we now have worked for a year and a half to put in place. People are hungry in this community for this. Parents are hungry for this for their kids. Chairman Gant, thank you for allowing us to make this presentation, and any questions that you have at this time.
Any questions from the board? Commissioner Frost?
I just have a statement. The bottom line is, when you said people are hungry for this, if there's anything that we can do to make a student love school, and with their love of school get a great paying job, then we're going to take away some of the hungry part. So thank you for the work you've done.
Any other comments or questions for Dr. Baldwin?
One more question.
Sir, Commissioner Fryer.
Dr. Baldwin, I think we've had build out of schools expecting more children to be in them. Like, I think Owen High School has got a lot of property but not enough kids in it. Is there some way that we can do this in a different form and utilize a school that we have that is not to capacity without spending money and then having to reach it? I know if we do it, that we're going to be the ones that's going to be maintaining it. As commissioners, we're going to be giving you money to do this. The main thing is Owen or Irwin or one of these schools that you have, and basically Owen, because it was built bigger because of thinking that more people come. Wouldn't it make a little more sense to put it in something like that than having a build out that's in town? You know, it's easier to get to one of the side schools than it is to go to the old Square D plant, which is up Emma Road, up over the hill, up to the top of the hill. Do we have any capacities there?
You know, I think there are capacities, Mr. Fryer, across the county. I truly believe that we've got some needs, though, that if we get out of the box and be creative, I think we can find ways to more effectively use that space. And that's a fair question to ask. And to be honest, you know, we've looked at those particular options, but again, regardless of where we place this STEM high school, it is, and it would probably take me a 2-hour program to really be able to make sure you understood how different this concept is from any traditional high school that we have. Wherever this STEM program goes, there's going to be renovation costs, because we're talking, again, when you're saying science, technology, math, it is going to be, there's going to be considerable amount of renovation anywhere we go with it. And our hope is that this is going to be a high school. To qualify, and I say this because to qualify for the innovative status, which also allows us to qualify for funding, operational funding, which would certainly assist us in terms of not having to come to anyone for operational funds. That has to be, we're talking about 100 students per class, and so that high school could not be over 400 students. So where we would have space to house a complete high school, and again, understanding that we're integrating math and science all across the board, every course these students take. It's just a whole different mindset that physically I don't know how we do and say, you know, 6 classrooms that we may squeeze space at Valley Springs Middle School, for example.
Well, I mean, Valley Springs, but we just opened up 2 more middle schools and moved students around, so we're getting open areas in the county that it's still costing us money. And, you know, I'd like to see how many particular students are in the schools, like the new Coons and them, because you took kids out of other schools to put in there to fill these schools. That's $2.4 million that the taxpayers are absorbing now for the 2 extra schools per year. I'm not against any STEM schools. Back when I went to school, we used to get out at noon and I'd go to work at Harris Cadillac to learn how to work on a car. But the fact is there a different way that we can do it where it's not sitting in the city? I guess could be a good idea, but sitting in the county at one of these schools, if you have to partial it off to make it work right, if there's room, you know, let's look at that before we, and I understand what you're trying to say, everybody wants to step up, but we got a certain percentage of kids that are going to be learning in this particular goal, but then we have the ones that still over at high schools that's not getting, being able to do this. It's just like we have charter schools. They have money that follows the kid. That's it. Everything else they have to raise and to do. So, you know, I look at it as let's teach the kid and not worry about the building. That's, you know, and that's, it might be the wrong philosophy, but, and I appreciate what you brought forward. I understand all the people think that there's, you know, chemicals and this and that on the site. I don't know. You know, that's something that everybody has to find out. But I still think there's a way that for the people of the county, because budget time's coming, it's not, you know, reval's coming to us. So we want to do for the kids, we want to do for you, we want to do for all of Buncombe County. But I would like to see if you could look at it in a different form.
Mr. Jones?
I'm very excited about this prospect, and I think it will be a model. So, but just when I think I can't get more excited, I think I heard you mention that there's might be a new funding stream that can be tapped into. So could you say that? And I probably should know more about that.
Well, we have an opportunity as a cooperative, innovative high school to qualify for some funding. So in order to do that, that's part of this process. So, you know, our intent is to, as soon as possible, complete that application, and because there's other systems across the state that are going to want to qualify as well. So
is it a state
potential.
Funding stream or is it a federal funding
stream? It's a state.
And what, just your guess, but in terms of that potential, if we were awarded that, what percentage of your operating budget would that make up?
It's ballpark,
sure.
The best I can give you, possibly up to about 65%.
Wow, that's terrific. Okay, good. Thanks for everything. It's a great presentation. It's a really exciting prospect. I'm very supportive.
Okay, I'll take that as a motion to approve. Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, I do have a comment I want to make. I want to assure the public that whatever was sent here, that I intend to look at it. I had not seen any of that before. I intend to look at it. I am a supporter of STEM High School. I think it's a great thing. But anytime the public brings something forward that we should do our due diligence on, since I haven't seen it, I intend to look at it, and I think all the staff should look at it as well as the commissioners too. And I'm sure they probably will. So.
All right, is there a second to Commissioner or Vice Chair Jones's motion?
Second.
Motion second by Commissioner Frost. Any other discussion or comments?
I have a couple of questions.
Sir, Mr. Newman.
Mr. Baldwin, could I just have a couple follow-up questions? Thank you. So I just want to, you know, obviously the school board and your staff, you're all a lot closer to this than us. You've spent months and years on this. We're just spending a much shorter amount of time on it. But you know, when you hear concerns raised of the nature that we do, obviously we want to make sure we take those kind of concerns seriously, as I'm sure you do as well. So I just want to kind of repeat back what I heard you say in terms of the process that you've used to look at those concerns and make sure I heard it correctly. So in addition to following whatever sort of regular state protocols you needed to follow for a project involving a public school, the school board decided to do additional testing above and beyond that. And so you said you had 8 additional test sites that you decided to...
There were a total of 10
okay.
sites. And maybe to simplify that, what I would say is that we went beyond the monitoring of the water through those 2 wells to actually taking soil and subslab samples inside the area that was designated for STEM.
So on the property where the facility will be located, the school will be located, you took, it wasn't water samples, it was soil samples to look at what's in the soil.
Subslab.
Okay.
That's correct.
So you sampled, you took these soil samples from the property where the school will be located, and those tests came back not indicating that there was the contamination that there's this concern about from the property across the street. Found that there was not evidence of any kind of contamination.
That's
in
correct.
Those samples.
Everything was below levels.
And then the county schools have committed to doing additional testing into the future to continue to confirm that there is no such contamination on the site where the school will be located.
That's absolutely correct.
For 4 years going into the future.
Yes, for 4 years, that's sequenced in each of those years.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, Dr. Baldwin. And it's my understanding also that there'll be no soil disturbed in this. We're simply working within the existing building, and city water is provided there.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay.
And I would add that is, when we look at Buncombe County and our 6 school districts, that is a central location. In fact, we currently host our English as second language students, so we have transportation that's already structured to come into that building. That was also a real advantage for us.
Well, thank you for going over and above on the testing. Appreciate that. I've followed the STEM school for about a year now, and I'm very excited about the prospects of it.
Any other comments? I just would like to thank Chairman Reinhardt and Board Member Bryant for being here. I know y'all have spent an awful lot of time. I happen to hear a lot about your meetings and have good friends on the board, and thank you for doing this. But this is about job training. There's a demand for STEM. We're increasing the supply. And folks, we can't wait for the U.S. or North Carolina governments to lead us. We're going to have to lead them. Local government's got to step it up. And we're going to step it up tonight, I believe, I hope. Any other comments? Call the question. All those in favor of adopting the motion to approve the STEM funding ordinance request, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much for your good work on this. Next up, we have an add-on. We have the resolution concerning Highway 63 Lester Road, and I've read that during our pre-session. I will ask Commissioner King to talk a little bit about that.
Okay, I won't reread this in the interest of time, but basically we are putting forth a resolution to ask the state DOP to work in conjunction with community leaders in the Leicester area to come to a acceptable solution for the community's needs, and that will also meet the highways needs, the highway department's needs, to provide for the Leicester community. And that's simply all we're asking here, is that they will work with the leaders in Leicester, i.e. Ms. Bennett and Bruce Snelson and a few other people out there. So that's where we are.
All righty, and just I will rehash real quickly. Request DOT to work with the community on its current proposal, determine the community's vision for the future character of Leicester, provide residents with the opportunity to identify improvements, and to basically give our constituents in Buncombe County a more say and more dialogue than is currently on the drawing board, and come to mutually agreeable proposals for improvement. So we're and that's the motion. I'll take that as a motion. Commissioner King?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of the resolution as proposed and read in pre-session, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The resolution is adopted 7-0. Next, we have appointments. We have discussed in pre-session the Historic Resource Commission. We have elected to defer that so we can interview the candidates. We have a position on AB Tech Board of Trustees. Is there a nomination?
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Fryer.
I'd second it.
Been a nomination, a second. Are there any other nominations? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Commissioner Fryer is appointed by a 7-0 vote. Riverfront Development Board. We have any nominations?
I'd like to nominate David King.
Second.
Mr. King's, Commissioner King's been nominated. Any other nominations? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, no. Commissioner King is appointed to the Riverfront Development Board. MSD, we have actually we have two positions. We have Max Hayner position and John Creighton position. Are there any nominations?
I would like to nominate Commissioner Belcher.
Okay, Commissioner Belcher has been nominated. Are there any other nominations?
I move to support Commissioner Frost
Okay.
for the other position.
All right. Commissioner Frost has been nominated. Are there any other nominations for these two positions? The Hayner seat and the Creighton seat? If not, all those in favor of Commissioner Belcher and Commissioner Frost to be fill those seats, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. I would ask a friendly amendment, could this take effect next week? I think there is a board meeting tomorrow, and I'd like to, or Mr. Creighton and Mr. Hayner to have the last meeting. Okay, that good, so we'll amend that to, do we need to do a vote on the amendment, or can we just do that by consensus?
Let's cover it.
Okay.
Go back and
All
ask
right.
for the motion to be amended.
All right, okay, friendly amendment then. I think, let's see, is that okay to add that?
That'd be fine.
All right, so
Friendly
is there,
amendment to it.
we will have a motion, I'll make a motion that we make these appointments effective next week, next Monday, or just say next Tuesday, that would be the 20, what? Anybody good at math? 25th. Okay, effective 25th.
That's my birthday, by the way.
Well, that's another landmark. Vice Chair Jones' birthday. We can remember that one. So this will be effective the 25th of February. All those in favor of that amendment say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Okay, well, I guess we got an implied second in that. Okay. Next up, announcements. The next regular board meeting will be March 5, beginning at 4:30 p.m. in the Commission Chambers, 200 College Street, room 326 in downtown Asheville. County Commission meetings can be seen on BCTV Charter Cable Channel 2, ATT Uverse Channel 99, live on buncombecounty.org during the meetings, or online anytime at buncombecounty.org. Is there any other business to come before the board? I think we deduced there would not be a closed session tonight earlier. Is that still the case?
Correct, yes, sir.
Any other business? All those in favor of, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Been a motion by Commissioner Belcher, a second by Vice Chair Jones. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. We're adjourned.
We're going to talk about it. We're going to bring it from the MPO too.
Never know.
Wasn't me, I'm not that sneaky.
What?
It wasn't me, I'm not that sneaky.
And it's bad, it's not, and I always regret it later that I did it.
What's that?
But they really are. They're coming to Rome this week. We can find cars and make it.
Well, when you're in South Fortune, like you can't hear anything else.
When John was